And my guest today is an incredibly talented actor and producer. He has starred in hit shows like Wings, Private Practice, and Madam Secretary in the DC animated universe. Yeah, he's the voice of none other than the last son of Krypton from Superman, the animated series. It is Tim Daly. Tim, welcome to Comic Book Central.
Thank you, Joe. I'm really happy to be here.
Not as happy as I've been wanting to do this for a while. I think I've interviewed everybody from the DC animated universe, including Andrea Romano. Finally, she was able to appear on the show. So that was amazing. Everybody's had good things to say about each other. But look, you see behind me, if you're watching the YouTube version, I love me some Superman. I got the Superman stuff. Look, it's my favorite character, right? So we got Superman
Joe,
today.
look behind me. Right there is little Superman over here, little Superman over here. I'm still loving it.
You got to watch YouTube. And I saw an interview with you. I think it was from last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did I see a Daily Planet like little toy on your coffee table or an end table? Did I see that right, or am I wrong?
You did. Somebody who gave that to me. Geez, I'm going to have to search my memory banks to remember who gave it to me. But it's a little world, with a Daily Planet, and it's old school. It's probably from the 50s. You crank it up, and it spins around, a little airplane, and stuff flies around.
I was wondering if it was like a retro one, or if it was an original. Somebody gave you like an original from the 50s, like the George Reeves era.
Oh, it's an original, yeah.
Whoa. So is it okay? I'm seeing stuff. Is it safe to say you are a Superman fan? I know, because actors always like, sometimes it's a role, sometimes they're like, well, I didn't read comics growing up. You
listen. I'm going to go full disclosure here, because somebody once said honesty is the best policy. Sometimes maybe it's now honesty is the best probably, but I was not a comic book kid growing up.
It's okay. Save space.
But I loved I watched the original Superman, and the thing is that I think that Superman touches something almost primordial in human beings, because he can fly. I mean, who hasn't dreamt of flying, either consciously, or in a sleeping dream? And so I have become more of a Superman fan the older that I've gotten, and I think part of the reason is, and this may really age me, but the thing is that a lot of our superheroes have become so dark. They're not heroes at all. They're these dark, twisted, vengeful, spiteful, almost. They're so close to being bad guys that it's hard to think of them as superheroes. Superman, however, has remained relatively pristine in that way, even though he had a lot of childhood trauma. I mean, obviously his planet blew up with his mother and father, but
he's no different than Batman. I mean, the same issues that Batman did, even worse.
Yeah, exactly. Even worse than Batman. Look at Batman is listen, Batman's a great character, but he's very dark, and Superman is just, goodness. He just wants to help the human race be better and keep them safe. And I really appreciate that.
Well, you kind of walked me into a question I was going to ask you later, but I'll ask it now because it makes sense. So do you keep up with the current stuff? Look, you can see over my shoulder if you're watching the YouTube version, it's Christopher Reeve. I mean, that's my Superman. That's the light that I'm a friend. Who are you? A friend. That today you mentioned it. It's almost like the anti-heroes, right? Where everything's dark. I know Henry Cavill is great as Superman, but it's such a dark take on it. Do you keep up with the modern sort of mythos of it? And what do you think about that?
I really don't, because, like you, Christopher Reeve was my Superman, in terms of live action, he was my Superman. And, the thing about it is that for me, all these characters are born from comic books. Comic meaning something that's fun, and it's like I'm all for a good anti-hero. I am attracted to dark material as much as anyone, but I like that our superheroes are actual heroes and not anti-heroes. And I don't know, maybe it's because of my age, or maybe it's because, the world seems to be such a mess, but I long for like just straightforward heroes. I don't need, all the dark, twisted backstory and all that stuff. I don't want I don't want my superheroes to be, sort of mindlessly killing bad guys without, without having some kind of conscience about what their purpose is, which is to help humanity.
He's the big Boy Scout. I mean, that's why, he gets
He
that
is.
nickname too. This can't be right. This is your first TerrifiCon coming up, depending on when you're watching this, but as we're recording this, TerrifiCon's coming up. This is your first comic book convention in the pop culture convention in the United States. That can't be right.
In the world, not just the United States.
That can't be right.
It is right. And I will reveal to you the reason for that. When I was doing Superman actively, I had a manager who shall go nameless, who was very old school in terms of what he thought actors should do. And he thought that, doing Comic-Con was sort of for the unwashed, and he didn't get it. He thought Comic-Con was like country music. Now, listen, I love country music, like anything else.
Who doesn't?
There's crappy country music and there's great country music. There's great comics and there's terrible comics. It's like anything else. But
there's great rock and roll and there's bad rock and roll, right?
Right, exactly. Not everything is cool just because of the genre it's in. Anyway, he discouraged me from doing Comic-Con, which I was invited to a lot, because he thought it would somehow make me less cool than I was. Now, I've never set out to be cool. I've just set out to be a good actor. So I should have gone against his advice and gone. Wow. But yeah, this is my very first one.
That's unbelievable. Look, I've been to TerrifiCon for many, many years. It's amazing. What do you like? Have you ever been to the Mohegan Sun? It's a huge. No. Oh, it's a huge venue. What are your expectations? I got to ask you, because we're going to be running a panel Saturday at 1 p.m. It's you, Kevin Conroy, Batman. Speaking of Batman, Susan Eisenberg, Wonder Woman. There's your trilogy, and let's throw in Green Lantern, Phil Lamar. So that's going to be amazing on its own. What are your expectations going into this? I want to get this on the front end, and then I want to ask you about it on Saturday.
Well, this is the thing. When I started doing Superman, I really didn't understand sort of the fanboy universe. I don't know if you can use that term anymore.
Yep.
But I thought that, I was having a lot of fun, and I thought I was doing something for, kids to watch on Saturday morning, because that's what I did. I watched Superman in the morning when I was a little kid. I didn't realize that how important this whole world was, and this whole sort of imaginary universe of superheroes was to so many adults and so many people from all different walks of life. So I expect to see all different kinds of people, and I expect them to ask me a lot of questions, and I don't know. I'm fascinated by people and what they like and what they respond to. So I'm just going into it with a really open mind. And I hope to have a great time and meet a lot of folks who are enthusiastic to see me, because I'm going to be enthusiastic to see them.
I can't wait for this. I will tell you ahead of time. Here's a little bit of a free advice: have stories ready. Have stories at the ready, because you're gonna get peppered with just about everything. Okay, so let's go back a little bit then. So we talked about maybe not comic books so much growing up, but what kind of kid were you? And man, hitting the stage at 7. So I know performing family, but wow, 7 treading the boards.
Right. Well, you really should not count that. I mean, I know that you've obviously done an internet search, but that was a gimmick.
Wikipedia
right?
is a wonderful thing.
So my mom and dad were doing a play together, and my sister Tyne, was already like at 16 or whatever, 17. She was already laser focused on being an actress. I was a goofy 7-year-old kid who was just running around, and the people at this theater, and my sister Glenn, who's 8 years older than me, also had a small part in this play, and they stuck me in there. The part wasn't in the play. So I literally ran on stage and said, hi, and then ran off stage. And I would miss the curtain call every single night, because I'd be down by this river that was in the back of the theater, like throwing rocks with this friend of mine. And I would hear the applause, and I'd be like, oh, Well, I wasn't cursing back then, but I would say, "Oh my God!" And I would run into the theater and try to make it for the curtain call. I missed it most of the time, so I would not count that. It took me a long time to become serious about
All right.
being an actor and figuring out that it was something that I could actually do.
Okay, you tapped into there. So when did you figure it? What was the process? Because I think there was sports involved, and maybe like you were like anybody at that age, you're trying to figure out what you want to do. What tipped the scales toward acting?
Well, I was sort of, in my early childhood, I was sort of a lonely kid. My sisters were all a lot older, and I lived out in the country, and I had a really wildly overactive imagination. So I was inventing stuff, and I wasn't performing it so much. It was living in my mind. And I would wander around with dogs, and they would become creatures. And I had 3 imaginary friends who were my pals. And then at a certain point, my mom and dad split when I was about 8, and that was really traumatic for me. And I just at a certain point realized that it was really in high school when I realized that it was something I had an aptitude for, that I could use my imagination to create other people. And I did, my first play in high school was a Shakespeare play called Twelfth Night. And my parents did come to see it, and they didn't know it was me. And that was such a revelation to me, that I could fool them into thinking that I was another person. So it became clear to me that it was something I had an aptitude for, and it gave me a real relief from my actual life, right? Pretending to be someone else is fantastic because everything is right there in the script. You don't have to, deal with whatever happens during your day. It's all mapped out for you. And so I sort of immersed myself in that. But what I didn't know—
Was it an escape? Was it an escape?
It was an
Okay.
escape, yeah, without
Wow.
doubt. And what I didn't know, or what I needed to figure out, was whether or not I had the personality to be a professional actor. Because I think it's hard. I mean, people have talked about it a lot, but I still think that people don't quite understand how difficult it is to have the right kind of personality to endure the amount of rejection that you have to endure when you become a professional actor. And it's not like being a writer or a musician where you hand in a tape or you send off a manuscript. It's you. They look right at you and they say, "No, you're not right. You're too tall, you're too short, you're too fat, you're too thin, too blonde, too brown, too this, too that." And so you either have to be really stubborn or really stupid, but it's not really something that a healthy person should do. Be a professional actor. You should, if you can do anything else, you should probably do it, because your life will go a lot easier.
Yeah, the percentages of success are like very small, but I mean,
it's like winning the lottery. I mean,
yeah.
and
Well,
so
but you and your family done pretty well.
I'm knocking wood. I think we have a genetic predisposition, maybe disease that enables us to thrive in this business. But yeah, I mean, and it's been an incredible ride for me, because I've had successes, I've had failures, but I get to poke around in every corner of humanity. And I've been Superman, I've been a convict, I've been a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut. I mean, I've got to pretend to be all these things, which is really fun.
I never had to go to school for any of them. That's the best part,
Yeah, when I was in college, I had this professor. I was taking this course, and one of our assignments was to write an autobiographical poem, and it wasn't exactly a haiku, but it had a limit, the amount of syllables it was supposed to be. And I wrote this thing that, if I do say so myself, it's absolutely brilliant, and it will probably be my epitaph. And it's simple, and this is what it is: what he could not do, he pretended to. And that's me.
That's perfect. It's almost like Mel Blanc. That's all, folks, I think is on here. That's perfect for you. You've already got it set up. Look, I've got to get to Superman. It's Comic Book Central, but my wife and I are huge Wings fans. I've got to just ask you, Superman beat Batman for the role of Joe Hackett?
I know. How about that?
You beat out Kevin Conroy? Is that true?
I did. Yeah, we were both testing for that role.
Wow. Did you ever bring that up to him?
Well, listen, I don't.
Will you bring it up to him next week?
Listen, I don't want any trouble. You know what I'm saying?
All right, he is Batman.
He's been in a lot of cons. He's iconic. He's an amazing Batman.
Yeah.
I don't want any trouble. But my son Sam and I did a web series that we very cleverly called The Daly Show, spelled D-A-L-Y.
Oh, you're getting ahead of me, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, Kevin came on and did a cameo. And so we got to explore that territory a little bit, which was really fun. He was such a good sport.
I read in one interview that in you looking back at Wings, you didn't appreciate it for what it was at the time. I think you had mentioned you didn't give it its due or something. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Like what's your view of the show maybe now that you didn't get at the time?
My view of the show now is that it's really just wonderful. It's funny. Every once in a while, I don't seek it out, but someone will send me an episode or a clip and I'll watch it. And enough time has gone by. So it's almost like it's not me, right? I look back and I'm like, wow, that guy is funny. And then, oh, that's me. Wait. And I actually had dinner with Steven Weber a couple of weeks ago in LA, and it was fun to reminisce about it. But I think the thing about it is that I think we all sort of, rode this wave of appreciating Wings and being frustrated by it, because we were all in that show, well-trained, versatile actors, Weber, Tony Shalhoub, David Schramm, me, Webb, we all could do a lot of different things. And the thing about a sitcom is that no matter how amazing it is, it only deals with this slice of life, right? It's never going to go too far in either direction. And I think that all of us at one point or another were like, oh God, I just want to do a drama where I can scream and retch and cry and blah, 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 and not this kind of light comedy. But looking back on it, I think, wow, that was just a great show and an amazing cast. And I think that it didn't actually get its due from the public or the critics either. I think it was worth more adulation than it got. It got 8 years on TV, which is huge, but
I was going to say that's almost unprecedented for a lot of series. And you guys got to do all those things, but you didn't get to know that at the time. You can't know the future of You'll get to do all those things. So maybe looking back in and out, and it still to me contains one of the greatest lines in TV history by the late great actor William Hickey as Carlton Blanchard. I don't know if you even remember this. It's the
I remember Bill very, very well.
Do you know the line I'm going to go to?
Oh God, no, tell me.
Because his character called him the Riddler because he always asked questions and he just peppered everybody with questions. If you see it, but he says, if a monkey were to bite you, what kind of drugs would they make you take? And Shalhoub goes, I don't know. Maybe Joe knows.
I don't know. I can see him just almost crying with the frustration of it. Yeah. Watching scenes between Shalhoub and Bill Hickey was so hilarious because Tony he couldn't do it. He couldn't keep a straight face. It was just too much for him. He was almost just tears coming out of his eyes because he was trying so hard not to crack up.
It's on Paramount Plus. We can all watch it now. We can just watch every episode streaming. Superman the Animated Series. Belated congratulations on the 25th anniversary. It was last year, but you got the nice Blu-ray. You got the Blu-ray? Do they send you one?
I don't know.
They had to send you one. Do you watch them? Do you pop them in? Do you pop them in?
I haven't. I don't have a Bluray player. I know. Listen,
full disclosure, before we started recording, you kind of busted my chops for you still using Skype, but you don't have a Blu-ray player, Superman. So all right.
I know.
How did you come to the role? Because I think Clancy Brown, which is the perfect Lex Luthor, we can't imagine anyone else as Lex Luthor, but I think he came in for Clark. And he's even talked about this even on the Blu-ray. They have the interviews and such. But I think he's talked about this where he kind of come in with that, that big booming voice or something. And they were like, hey, Lex Luthor. Like, I got to play the bad guy. How did you come into this? Did you just walk us through that first process a little bit?
Well, I was doing Wings, and Chris Lloyd's wife, who, you know, went on to Modern Family fame, said, oh, you know, this friend of mine is doing the animated Superman. You should go and audition. I said, okay. And I'd never done it before. And so this is back when people actually saw each other face to face. So I drove out to the Valley, and I went in a room, and there was like Bruce Timms and Andrea and a couple of people. And I tried it, and they said, yeah, that's fine. Just like be yourself. And so I did it. And like, I had the job before I got home. I was shocked.
Did they call, because it like a self, like they called you and like you
well,
knew
I
before
mean,
you
they
even
had
got back to the house?
called my agent. I got home, and
Yeah.
my agent called me and said, you have the job.
But did you, because I think that's almost the key, because I don't know if you know the history of it, but like Bud Collyer back in the 60s, you know, radio days and such, but it would always be like, this is a job for Superman. It would change the voice, you know, like when he'd rip open the shirt, he would do that inflection. You don't do that. Like, it's you. It's kind of like you, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's very subtle.
A version of you. Yeah.
Version of me.
Yeah.
You know, and honestly, you know, Clark didn't show up all that much. I mean, it was mostly Superman. But and I actually really liked it when Clark was there, because I got to, you know, play with Dana Delaney, which was really, really fun.
How great is that?
Yeah, it was great. I love Dana. Anyway, yeah, it was you know, a lot more natural than I thought. They did not want some over the top version.
Did they tell you that going in, or did you go in cold and just nail it?
I went in cold and almost nailed it. They said, you know, kind of try it again and just don't do anything. Just let it, you know, let it be you. And it seemed to work out really well. I think also the other thing about Andrea, which I really, really admire, is that she was such a kind and generous and insightful person and director, is, but she was not interested in people that were going to make it difficult to do her job. You know, she didn't want any life's too short people. And unfortunately, there are some people in my profession who fall into that category. So, you know, what I remember most is like being in the room and how we just had a really nice time. You know, it was like she liked me. And that made a big difference, because she thought, if I'm going to spend time doing this with this person, I want to like them. I want to get along. I don't want any problems or, you know, stuff like that.
What a way to approach that too. And I think the key too is like, because Conroy, and you had the success of Batman the Animated Series coming in, so that helped. You guys didn't have to launch something, but Conroy, and we've talked about this with him on the show, is he had the opportunity to kind of be Bruce Wayne, but then you kind of do the, you know, I'm Batman. Every actor does their version of I'm Batman. Like, it has to happen. Superman doesn't have to do that.
No.
I'm indestructible. I can't, I don't have to be Batman. I don't have to scare you. And I think you probably maybe got that, even maybe subconsciously.
I did, but listen, let's be honest. So the fact that people couldn't tell that Clark Kent was Superman is a reach. I mean, because Superman doesn't have a mask. He doesn't have any of that. It's like, there he is. He looks exactly like Clark Kent. I mean, he just has a cape on. So, and pretty much exactly like Clark Kent. You know, Clark has the glasses, but I mean, it's one of those.
There is the Christopher Reeve thing where he goes up 6 inches, but I get where you're going.
There's a physical, but essentially, you know, you have to sort of suspend your disbelief to think that no one would know that Clark Kent is Batman.
Investigative reporter like Lois Lane.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, for some reason, we still buy this thing, you know, like, you know, Tom Cruise did all these Mission Impossible things, like someone grabs their face and like rips it off and it's a rubber mask. It's like, no. Those of us who are actors know that to make that work, you have to spend like 9 hours in the makeup chair. You can't, you know, just like put something on, yeah, and there it is, and there you do. It's like
fair.
That's one of the things about Superman that you know, we just take for granted, and it's a given, and it works very well.
They one of the great things about the Blu-rays, there's a new documentary on it too, and Andrea Romano mentions that when she records with Dana, Dana sits down first time, and it's like, okay, Dana Delaney as Lois Lane, take one, and then like silence, and then it was like the moment she describes the moment hit Dana that she had been obsessing about Lois Lane her whole life, and she had just heard Andrea say that. Was there anything like that? Did you reach any point where the weight of the character, the weight of the history, the decades, and you just went, oh, whoa, I'm Superman?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll tell you when. And it was a real delayed reaction. But I actually, I didn't particularly lie before, but I have been to the San Diego Comic-Con. They invited me for, as you can see here, you two people, the 75th anniversary of Superman, just as a guest, so I went, and I was in the audience, and there were a bunch of people who had played Superman. I think Henry Cavill was there, and on this panel, and it was a huge ballroom, probably 4,000 people, and whoever was emceeing it introduced me and said, let's welcome Tim Daly. And I stood up, and this room of 4,000 people gave me a thunderous standing ovation. And I was like, holy shit, like this really meant something. This really meant something to these people, the years that I spent doing that and the work that I did. So it made me at once, really proud, and also somewhat disappointed that I'm such a lunkhead. I appreciate these things after the fact. I wish I had been more committed to it, or committed to the importance of it when I was doing it.
But that's the great part, is you get to focus on the craft, and you gave us a definitive Superman, Clark Kent, Kal-El, however you want to describe him. But now you can sort of go back and enjoy the fandom. And I know that a lot of actors say that in the moment they just can't appreciate it because they're getting the work done. But now you can appreciate it. How did you see the character of Clark Superman? How did you approach it?
In a very straightforward way. I mean, you said Superman he's the ultimate Boy Scout. He's the guy who, figuratively, helps the old person across the street. And from that, from a gesture like that to, sort of saving humanity from, some dastardly villain. So I think that I approached it as he was just inherently good. I think it was maybe a little bit unfortunate that that he had to do so much fighting with bad guys.
Dude, I've talked about this with voice actors, that it's
yeah. I mean, the difference between
did you have a technique? Did you?
Well, Andrea and I would laugh so much, like, what's the difference between getting hit by a laser beam and being electrocuted, or getting hit by a train, or being smashed by a girder? Like, how do you differentiate? And we went through all this stuff. I do have sort of a funny story about this that has probably kept me from being asked to do Superman again. And I don't know if I should even tell it to you, but you tell me.
Of course you should. Of course you should.
So one time Al Roker was interviewing me about being Superman, and he came down to the recording studio, and they listened to me record, and he was interviewing me afterward. And he said, what is the experience like? And I said, well, a lot of it is, just these fighting sequences where I make these grunting, straining, groaning noises. And I said, come to think of it, it's a little disconcerting to think that the children of America have a pretty good idea what I sound like in bed. And so Roker fell off his chair laughing. And this woman from Warner Brothers was like, cut, Tim. And they sent me a nice letter telling me, and I said, I'm so sorry. It was a joke, and I didn't mean it that way. I don't want to offend anybody, but there is a kernel of truth there.
You represent Superman. I could just hear all the executives at Warner Brothers, losing their collective minds at that point. But now the character's all dark and stuff, so it doesn't matter. It's amazing. Dana talked about this, the guest stars. I know there were so many of them. It's hard to remember who all came in, but like she fangirled out over some of the guest stars. Did you fanboy out over anybody? Was there somebody? Because there's like the legends of Hollywood marching through the studio.
Malcolm McDowell. Oh gosh. I mean,
I know I'm putting you on the spot. It's like,
I mean,
name your favorite kid, right? Yeah.
I'd have to go through and think of Michael.
Yeah.
Michael, what's his
Michael
name?
Ironside.
Michael Ironside, but Michael, the English actor who I loved so much from a kid.
I know it's going to dawn on me right after too. Yeah.
Anyway, if I had a list of the guest stars, I would.
Did you like autograph? Can you get it? Like, did you any of that or not?
I'm not that kind of guy. I mean, I just,
Fair.
I really appreciate people's work. But the interesting thing about growing up with actors is that I had a lot of, hugely, young people wouldn't know who they are, but I had a lot of hugely famous people, walking through my house when I was a kid. And I have to say that I was mostly extremely unimpressed by them. It was like, the 60s or whatever it was, and people were smoking cigarettes and drunk and, telling stories, and they were interesting. But I always say to students, whenever I talk to them, I say, be very careful about meeting your heroes, because sometimes they might be total douches, and that will diminish your view of them. So if you really love their work, just remember to love their work, and be careful about, wanting to, get in conversation with them, because sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it works out great, but, I think my theory is that the percentage of D-bags to like great people is the same in any profession, whether you're doctor, lawyer, entertainer, actor. But actors, it's just more public because there's more eyeballs on it. Anyway, I got to meet some people that I admired greatly, and I can't think of one who was not really gracious and wonderful. So.
That's only happened to me one time in the 10-year history, nearly 10-year history of the show. So that's not too bad. We'll never say who it is. People can probably go back and listen and find out. So voicing Bizarro, I got to ask you in the time we have left, voicing Bizarro, that's got to be one of the coolest parts of the show, right? You get to do some cool things with Bizarro.
That was really fun because, here's, this sort of misunderstood Superman-like character who's, kind of manipulated. And I don't think he was inherently evil. He's not like Lex Luthor or one of the other super villains. He was just a misguided guy, and it was really fun making up that voice and playing that character. And I felt like, I may be making this up, but I felt like Superman had some compassion for him in a weird way, because they were, sort of the same person in a weird way. It made me think
brothers, like brothers almost.
Well, sort of, or like, there's that saying, there but for the grace of God, and go I, and it's sort of that, it's like Superman we're all this close to being something that's a tragic version of the selves that we are, and that was Bizarro. He's just off enough that he couldn't be the good Superman. He was, wreaked havoc.
You've revisited the character a few times. I know you couldn't. I think you were doing The Fugitive, right? And then George Newbern came in because you were, So, but you've revisited. You've had a chance to sort of reunite with, Would you do it again? Have you been approached to do it again?
I have not, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. I would love to do it again. I think I'd be better now than I ever was. So,
what would you do with it?
I would, just make it deeper, richer, funnier. It just all, and I think that I would be more confident about participating in what in the scripts, not writing them, but talking about, what, just going a little deeper with them, talking about what it might mean for certain things in the scripts and for Superman. But I also think my voice is better now. It's like whiskey in a barrel.
It aged perfectly. Social media, we can find out what you've got going on now on social media, right? You're out there.
Yeah, I'm semi out there. I mean, full disclosure, I have someone that does it for me, because I am a rabbit hole kind of person, and if I get too involved, I'll kind of find myself in a dark, corner, doom scrolling. So I've got to be a little careful. but you can find out about what I'm doing. I'll make sure that the person who keeps me in the modern world lets people know what I'm up to.
We'll put the links out there. Tim, thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to get together with the whole Justice League at TerrifiCon. And thank you for giving us, man, one of the definitive performances of Superman of all time. We appreciate that so much.
Joe, that's very kind of you. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be a blast. We're going to have a great time. Thanks so much.
All right, man. Thank you so much. You take care.